All right, welcome into Sports Bit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, April 14th. Deep dive today, 5 great minutes with Brian Mahoney, covers the NBA and the Knicks for the Associated Press. Recap the NBA season, look ahead to the finals. There's the playoffs. We'll get a finals pick as well. We'll talk Coach of the Year and some awards. Play of the day and big game breakdown. 3 baseball games, bad beats, bad bets coming up. Teddy again. That's why we love sports. I was dead wrong. I didn't think Kobe Bryant had it in him. That was dynamite television. He goes out 60 points, 22 of 50 from the floor, and the Lakers come back and beat the Jazz in his final game. All that pressure on him, and he delivered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kobe's delivered under pressure before, but this was a bad beat if you had the Jazz. And the money poured in on the Lakers. I mean, Utah was bet from -8 all the way down to as low as -3.5 after they were eliminated with the Rockets win earlier in the night, and they dominated early. Yep. You know, they were up 10 with just over 2 minutes to play. But this was all about Kobe. Of course, yeah, he scored 60 points. Well, he also took 50 of the Lakers' 85 shot attempts. He did have 4 assists with those 50 shot attempts.
I can't.
But how about this on the total?
Oh.
The total was bet up to from 189.5 to 196.5. Tons of over money, just pouring in. 2 minutes left. It's Jazz and under. Then Kobe goes nuts, scores 13 in a row. All of a sudden, Lakers and over. Tough beat if you had the under. Tough beat if you had the Jazz. But Kobe does it one more time. So, you know, they've been having this discussion all week, Pauly. Kobe versus Michael. To me, it's not even a discussion. Michael is at a level that nobody else has been before or since.
Yeah.
Do you think Kobe merits, he's got some rings, but Michael Jordan was Michael freaking Jordan. What's your take?
No, well, I think you can compare Kobe to Jordan, although I think if Jordan played today, he averaged 38 a game. But the comparison that pisses me off is LeBron James. I mean, when they do that with LeBron, this is a guy who stood in the corner and refused to shoot in the fourth quarter of the finals against Dallas. So, yeah, Jordan, forget about it. He's number one, and it's not even close. But, you know, let the hyperbole begin that might have been the best final performance from an athlete ever after what Kobe was able to do. And I can't believe he had 4 assists. He actually passed the ball a few times.
Yeah, but that certainly wasn't the only beat last night. But, I mean, but hang on a second, though, because, again, Kobe's a scorer. There was never a question that Kobe Bryant could shoot.
Yeah.
And if you're going to give him 50 shot attempts, he's going to score a bunch of points. But that final flurry, you know, that was impressive. I'll give him credit. Kudos to Kobe for going out on a high note.
Well, this was a moose. I mean, what the Heat did last night. Up 24 in the third quarter. You're catching 5, and they can't even. And Boston gets the money. Not to mention the 3 seeds on the line, and they still walk away with the 3 seed because Atlanta gets beat. More on that coming up. But the Heat only scored 5 points in the third quarter, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching it, and I was, and I had a Miami ticket in my pocket, and I was feeling pretty good about it. You know, one thing you don't do, you never write down the W on your spreadsheet before the game is over. I've learned that lesson, but this is one that I was feeling pretty good about at halftime. It wasn't 5 minutes into the third quarter when I knew it was in big trouble. You know, I mean, by the time Boston cut the lead to 12, you could just sense it, and I was actually able to get off my bet with some live wagers on the Celtics at that point, but you hate to do that. You really do when something feels pretty good. But, you know, Boston, first of all, that first half was as bad as it gets. You know, Avery Bradley, quote. And, of course, the Celtics brought in the legends from 3 different previous championship teams to come in and watch them. So, Avery Bradley, quote, that's embarrassing to have all these legends in the building and us playing this way. Of course, they were down, 22 at the half or something like that. In the second half, I saw a few of them smiling. It got everyone smiling on the bench. That's what it's all about, us going out there and playing Celtic basketball. We fought through adversity and showed what kind of team we can be. Going into the playoffs, this is big for us because it gives us a lot of confidence. Not only that we know how we need to play every single night to get the wins. And, of course, Brad Stevens said the same thing. We just needed to find ourselves. That was my biggest thing. But we railed about the Celtics defense last night, talking about how bad it's been, and it was every bit as bad in the first half. In the second half, they played inspired defense. Made a big difference in that ballgame.
All excellent points there. Another bad beat. How about for the sports books here with the Bulls and the Sixers? Game lands 10. Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Bulls were bet from 9.5 to 10.5. The game lands right on 10. Of course, the Sixers blew a 22-point lead in that game. You think about Game 82, you're not expecting a lot of come-from-behind wins. There was a ton of blown leads last night. Philly's up 22 in Chicago. Yeah, they didn't cover. Certainly not if you bet them early. That, a tough beat and not a good result, as you mentioned, for the house.
All right, plenty of bad bets. Let's start in Major League Baseball. For the second game in a row, they were betting against the Cubs, and Simon says, no chance. 49 pitches, he couldn't get out of the first inning. The Cubs roughed him up.
Yeah, and again, the money, we talked about how the books are going to hate, they already hate the Chicago Cubs. And now the wise guys are like, oh, these numbers are too high on the Cubs. We got to be getting against the Cubs. These numbers aren't right. And we saw a lot of wise guy money. I mean, Cubs were bet from minus 220 down to minus 190. Of course, Simon said, no chance. But he wasn't the only guy getting roughed up. Certainly not the only veteran getting roughed up.
Oh.
Eye-opener for Jake Peavy yesterday. Wasn't pretty. Faced 23 batters. 12 of them reached base. And 10 of the 12 had extra base hits. You know how many hitters or pitchers in Major League Baseball history have allowed 10 extra base hits in a game?
Let's have it.
One. No, I shouldn't say that. One living person has equaled that. That would be Kurt Schilling, gave up 10 extra base hits in August of 2006. But, of course, you kind of expect that in August. I shouldn't say you expect 10 extra base hits in August, but you expect some ugly outings when the weather's really warm and guys get roughed up. You don't expect to see that from Jake Peavy, but we did yesterday. Pretty ugly effort.
And bad bets from the NBA. How about the Pelicans? Oh, Pelicans in the under. They gave up 144 points.
Yeah. The lowest scoring quarter for the T-Wolves last night was 32. They shot 65% from the floor and then proceeded to fire Sam Mitchell immediately after the game. A real good job up in Minnesota. They can probably have their pick. I think any head coach would want the young talent that the T-Wolves had. And the name I heard floating around was Tom Thibodeau. I think he would be an excellent fit for the T-Wolves, potentially. What about Sacramento? Another no-show game in game number 82. They lose by 35 in George Karl's last ever game as an NBA head coach. Here's my question for you, Pauly. George Karl, overrated, underrated? What's your take?
Yes, overrated. Not a lot of success in the playoffs. Absolutely.
Way overrated. I think he's the most overrated coach of the last 25 or 30 years.
Wow.
When you think of the talented roster, what do you remember? Wasn't his Sonics team the first number 1 seed to ever go down?
Yeah, lost to Mutombo and the Nuggets. And
absolutely.
Kemp and Payton, yep.
Loaded teams. Never won anything with them.
Yep.
And continued on throughout the course of the year. The media loved him. Very friendly guy. The guys who are nice guys, who give interviews, who give quotes, who have sound bites, they get a lot more leeway than the guys who are a little bit ornery. George Karl, very nice guy, was not an effective head coach at any point in recent decades, and he'll be one and done in Sacramento.
Yep, and one more. The Atlanta Hawks, what happened? Bet up to 9 against the Wizards, and they sat some key guys, and Atlanta's trying to get the 3 seed. Now, they have home court. They play Boston in the 4-5, but, they have to know the Miami score, and they got drilled by the Wizards.
Well, maybe the fact that the Heat were up 20-something at halftime, maybe Atlanta's a little bit flat and sluggish in that one, but, they were pretty lethargic against the Wizards' backups in that game. But we talked about it right here on SportsBit several times this past week. Seeding is not the same motivator as making the postseason.
Yeah.
And when teams are chasing the 3 seed or chasing the 4 seed, look, Atlanta got the 4 seed anyway. It wasn't a nightmare scenario for them in that regard. They will have home court advantage against Boston, but certainly not an inspiring performance from the Hawks and a disappointing result for me. The 2 teams I wanted to be playing on, maybe the Celtics, definitely the Hawks. Now they're facing each other in the first round. And the winner of that series, they're going to knock off Cleveland. I'm telling you that right. And regardless of what your guest said today.
Ooh, wow. If that happens, LeBron's done. He's out of Cleveland. Well, that's a good prediction there. Big game breakdown up next. We start with the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. Can Stripling do it again? On SportsBit, betting insight today. Back on Sports Bit, Pauly and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown. Let's start with the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. Ray against Stripling. Dodgers $1.45, total of 7.5. And you saw history with Ross in his first start. In his debut, 100 pitches, no hits, a 2-0 lead, 1 out in the 8th. The bullpen blows it. But in that game, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, one of which was Matt Cain. And he hit the strike zone only on 58 out of 100 pitches and more fly ball outs than ground ball outs, Teddy. And I thought they made the right move, as Robert said, listen, you're off to surgery. We don't want to risk your career. His dad even thanked him after the game when he was at 100 pitches. But now he's got the pressure of living up to the hype and the expectations at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, and remember, I'm going to say made fun, but yeah, we made fun of Stripling a little bit for having the number 68 in spring training, which tells you you're not supposed to make the big league roster. And it was a great Walter Mitty story, I should say, for a guy that wasn't even supposed to be on the spring training roster. But I think that it tells us more about baseball itself than it tells us about Russ Stripling. Of course, Walter Mitty, everyone remembers the movie, the great short story from Thurber's about an ineffectual guy who just likes to dream big. Not like the Ben Stiller movie a couple years ago. That wasn't a decent movie, but it wasn't even that good of a movie.
You saw that?
Yeah, well, it has a good version of Major Tom,
All right.
Whatever. Anyhow, you talked about Stripling. Yeah, he got lucky. The 17 times there was contact, the ball always found a glove. Mm-hmm. The advanced metrics on Stripling's debut. Again, he didn't give up any runs, so his ERA 0.00. Well, the fielding independent pitching says it should have been a 3.81. The XFIP, which is the adjusted fielding independent pitching, says it should be 5.52. The Sierra, which is another alternative to ERA using advanced metric stats, said it should have been in 6.03. So all everyone remembers is that the guy was throwing a no-hitter and he got pulled. But the reality was he was every bit as lucky as he was good. The balls that got hit to the right places. Mm-hmm. And now he's going to face an opponent that has video of him. And, of course, as you mentioned, he's got the pressure of higher expectations in front of the Dodger Stadium crowd. But baseball luck really helped Stripling. What about Robbie Ray's 2015 season, Pauly?
Unbelievable. A 3.52 ERA, and in 23 starts, he had a record of 5-12. Come on, get the guy some help.
Yeah, 3.52 ERA. And the FIP was right there, 3.53. He was on the wrong end of the luck spectrum. And believe me, there's no shortage when it comes to luck spectrum in Major League Baseball. That's what a lot of the advanced metric stats are trying to take out of the picture. Robbie Ray certainly better than his win-loss record would indicate a year ago.
This is a good game. Yankees against the Blue Jays. Stroman against Eovaldi. Toronto $1.55. Total of 8. Teddy, is it time that we buy in on Stroman?
Well, I mean, look at this picture. He actually looks above to give thanks for what happens below. And what happens below is ability to have the hitters put ground ball after ground ball into play. That's what Marcus Stroman has been doing. And, of course, his career is now up to virtually the innings of a full season. He's had 171 innings in the big leagues. His ground ball rate through those 171 innings, 56%. Now, take a look at this graph, because this graph's going to tell you real clearly that 56% ground ball rate. Again, the advanced metrics love this type of number. He will be a pitcher that's getting respect in the betting markets, but there aren't a whole lot of pitchers that have a ground ball rate greater than 56%. You look, last year there was only 5. The year before there was only 4. The year before there was only 2. So these are the type of ground ball numbers that the markets love. And, of course, Stroman's also sitting on counts. What has he got? 7.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, reasonable numbers. Only 2 walks per 9 innings. We've got an overall very solid package from a young hurler who's showing a lot of promise. But, of course, the betting market's not sleeping on what Marcus Stroman has done so far.
And Eovaldi was the opposite of Ray last year. Look at this graphic. He was 14-3, but at an ERA of 4.20, and he didn't face the Blue Jays in Toronto. I mean, how strange is that?
Well, he made 27 starts in the AL East without facing the Blue Jays in Toronto. That's the insanity of what happened last season. Again, the luck of the draw.
Yep.
And it's pretty clear. Eovaldi, he's got a decent sinker ball, but really we're talking about a guy with average stuff. Last year, all that average stuff turned into wins. Things worked out right for him. The Yankees gave him a ton of support. Don't know if that's going to happen 2 years in a row. Smart money says might be difficult.
One more, Orioles and the Rangers. Hamels against Tillman. The Rangers are $1.30, 8.5 game in Texas. The Orioles are bringing the lumber here, even without Jones, and it's been a great start for Trumbo. He likes his new home. He's 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and he's really hitting the ball and responsible for what the Orioles have been able to do so far.
Yeah, .522 slugging percentage, hitting .406. I mean, Trumbo's always been a bat that has that type of potential. He's been up and down in recent years, but certainly off to a good start in Baltimore. Everyone's off to a good start in Baltimore. Who needs Adam Jones when you're hitting the way the Orioles have hit over the first week plus of the season? But, of course, finally take their first loss of the year yesterday. Now they got to travel to Texas. And, oh, by the way, they got to face Cole Hamels tonight. And Cole Hamels, once again, he's nasty. You know, a great ground ball rate. Third straight season of improvement in terms of ground ball rate for Hamels. And, of course, he hasn't given up a fly ball out in his first 2 games. The only 2 fly balls hit against him turned out to be home runs. That's a good sign. Not necessarily a good sign that the 2 fly balls hit against him turned out to be homers, but the fact that the ball is staying on the ground. Baltimore is a team that needs to get the big bops in order to put runs up in bunches. They have that capacity and potential. But against a pitcher like Hamels, not necessarily going to be easy. He's been keeping the ball down all year.
Up next, 5 great minutes with Brian Mahoney. Covers the Knicks and the NBA for the Associated Press. I caught up with him Wednesday afternoon. We'll talk about his finals pick, what's going to happen in the playoffs, and some end-of-the-season awards. That's coming up next. And the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. All right, welcome back on SportsBit. Time for 5 great minutes with Brian Mahoney at Brian C. Mahoney on Twitter. He covers the NBA for the Associated Press, and we'll recap the season and get into the NBA playoffs. Do you agree with a lot of people, Brian, that the Cavs could be in trouble and could go down early in the playoffs?
I really don't. I just think LeBron is playing way too well for them to lose 4 times to anybody in the East. They have not certainly impressed me the way I thought they would. I thought going into the season they were going to take a real step forward. I honestly picked them before the season started to win the title this year, and they haven't turned out to be that way. So I understand why people do think they could lose early, but the way LeBron's playing, I just don't see them losing early 4 times. They're going to find a way to keep getting through.
Any concerns about Lou? Maybe a coaching mismatch is if they get into the conference finals or the NBA finals?
I can understand people saying, a first-year coach and one that, again, they haven't shown themselves to be what people thought they would. I can understand how people say that. And, look, going against Stan Van Gundy in the first round, who's a great coach, great experienced coach, who's coaching the finals. So, yeah, I mean, there's some concern there. But I just think, again, talent-wise, they have enough. In the playoffs, talent wins. When you got the best player, you win the series. And that's what they're going to have going forward through the East.
Who's your coach of the year?
I picked Terry Stotts. I just thought, like a lot of people did, when you look at what they lost last year with Aldridge leaving and Batum and Robin Lopez on and on, Matthews, the West was too tough. They were going to take a major step back. They not only haven't taken a step back, really, they, could still go into this playoffs with a chance to win a round. So I think he's done a great job there, and that's who I think should win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and also Carlisle did an incredible job. I'm surprised how many people want to give the award to Kerr when I know he came right in and the success they had after Jackson was fired, but they had a better record with Luke Walton. So I have a hard time giving the award to Kerr when you see what Stotts was able to do.
I'm the same way, Paul, and particularly with the way the NBA ballot came out. They put both Walton and Kerr on there. You could vote for either guy. If they had made it where you could vote for the Golden State Warriors coach, then maybe I'd say, okay, you can vote for them. But to me, you can't vote for Steve Kerr if you can't vote for Luke Walton. I mean, Luke Walton got them off to the start they got. They had 1 more games with him. So, as great a year as Steve Kerr has had, to me, he didn't have a full year as a great year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Will Curry be the first unanimous MVP?
I still think someone will vote against him just because There's other years when there should have been unanimous and it hasn't happened yet. So I imagine someone will vote against them. I'm not sure who they would vote for, but if we haven't seen it yet, my guess is we won't see it now. But I do think that if you ask me, should he be unanimous? Yeah, I do think he should be.
Yeah, well, we'll see what they do. I know you had what was it, the Shaq Iverson year, where Iverson got the one vote from Shaq?
Exactly, and then there was one of the LeBron's MVP years when Carmelo got the other first place vote,
Okay.
and I thought LeBron should have been unanimous that year.
Yeah, you've been covering the NBA for a long time. Is there a particular a number, a stat, the one thing that blows you away with what Golden State was able to accomplish this year?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I could pick one. That's a good question. Obviously, the 24-0 start, the number of three-pointers, never losing back-to-back. Any one of those is stuff that I never thought you would see. So they're all incredible numbers. I mean, and of course, it's a cop-out answer, but 73 wins if they get, that's something that I never thought someone would pass the Bulls. So all that stuff is just amazing.
Talking NBA with Brian Mahoney at Brian C. Mahoney on Twitter, covers the NBA for the Associated Press. Is there a team that you don't believe in, or a high seed, a good seed that could be in trouble? I know Toronto's gone out 5 straight times in the first round, but is there somebody you're not buying entering the playoffs?
I think early on everyone gets through. If there's a team who, as much as their seed I don't buy, would be Oklahoma City. I don't buy them as a team that can get to the finals, but I do think they'll get through with the early rounds. Just like in the NBA, it's just hard to have many upsets because, again, beating 4 times, the team that has more talent usually finds a way to win. So I don't see any early major upsets anyway. Maybe there can be a smaller one, but I don't see anything too crazy early on.
Do we see a rematch of the finals last year? Is it Cavs-Warriors again?
I think it is. The Warriors have just shown as good as San Antonio is. I think when they play their best, the Warriors are better than them. And I just don't see anyone beating Cleveland in the East. As much as I try and look around at Toronto and Boston and all, Miami has beaten Cleveland a couple times. And I just don't find a way that they can lose. I keep trying to talk myself into it, but I just don't see it. So I see the same end result: Warriors over Cavs again.
Okay, and one more thing. I know they were a horrible team this year, but it's an important offseason for the Lakers. Do you think they'll make the correct coaching hire? And will guys actually want to play with that roster? And can they turn it around?
They should be able to turn it around, going with that one first. There is good young players there. When you look at what Randall's done and Russell and Clarkson, that's a nice young core right there, and you're going to get a high pick probably. So there's no reason why they shouldn't turn around pretty quickly. Coaching-wise, I don't know what they're going to do. The obvious thing you'd look at and say they're going to make the change, but everything I've heard, too, is people aren't certain, even people who are in Los Angeles. So I don't know. That's obviously, I think, the first thing they've got to figure out. Is he your guy or not? And if not, then I think they're going to have no problem filling all their needs, coaching-wise, talent-wise. It's just too much of a marquee team with an opportunity. They always find a way out of it. That's something Kobe's always said. Even when things go bad for them, they find their way out quickly, and I think they'll do it again.
Hey, we'll do this soon. Enjoy the playoffs. Thanks for 5 great minutes. And thanks for coming on, Brian.
Thank you, Paul. Take care.
Brian Mahoney. Up next, play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Thanks to Brian Mahoney. He'll be on for the postseason run here. Great job by Brian at Brian C. Mahoney on Twitter. It's money time. Time for the play of the day. Betting number 970. Let's go with the Texas Rangers. Hamels $1.30. The Rangers are an undervalued commodity here. They're getting priced like they're not an elite team. And the Orioles, coming off the trip, the roadie in Boston, now they're on the road. Again, we think Hamels will slow that offense down and get the win at home. Rangers, the play of the day. Let's make it 2 in a row. Teddy, we got our hands full Friday. I'm looking forward to it. NBA playoffs, will go through all of the matchups coming up.
Yeah, this is going to be a loaded show tomorrow. Do not miss it. We've got 8 series previews and a deep dive into playoff betting theory. Be sure to be right back here tomorrow on SportsBit.